Welcome back to another episode of The Rip. Brent, how have you been?
Good. Back to my rocking chair. Became professional with my laptop.
Good to be back in the studio. Super excited to be kicking off our first of a new type of show that we're going to be doing, because I think we've had a few different types of shows. Ones where we do previews of competitions, reviews of the honest reviews of competitions. But this one, the form of a masterclass.
A masterclass.
Hopefully there's an excitable audience out there who's really interested in some of the lessons that we have. But then I know, we're looking forward to actually building this out with some of our friends in the life-saving industry or the life-saving space, and start turning this into a really useful educational
Who would
platform.
have thought? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
So today, the first masterclass, we are going to be diving into a world that I'm super passionate about, specifically athlete social media or sports media. And I would like to run through just a basic kind of structure of how athletes should be thinking about their social media, types of goals they should be setting, how to make it easy to manage and run, and why it's important to actually be taking your social media a little bit more seriously. We come from a sport that, it isn't the most well known, and it's up to us as the athletes and the current ambassadors to help it grow. So super passionate about this topic. And we're going to dive in. You're going to be interviewing me, asking me all the hard-hitting questions.
Tricky hard questions.
But going to be an awesome one to unpack. Let's go. Awesome.
So, why does social media matter for life-saving athletes today, beyond just posting grand speedo pics on Instagram?
So, social media, it's quite a loaded term when you think about it, and everyone has very different ways of understanding it and how they use it. You've got your Instagram heavy users, you've got your Facebook generation that we were born and bred from. You've got your LinkedIn enthusiasts, and I think there's maybe 5 people still left on Twitter or X, as it's known.
X gonna give it to you.
But social media, by definition, if you break it up, you actually understand a bit more what it is. Media is the content that you create, and media can be anything written, photography, videography based, and then the social element means that you're putting this media onto platforms where it can be engaged with. Gone are the days where we used to just sit at home with media in our photo albums and we would socialize around the couch when mom would point at one of the photos of us being like, that's my favorite. Modern day means that media is being created either by you or by brands or by institutions, and then put onto platforms where it can be socialized around. Take that into the life-saving space. I think it's such an awesome thing to look at as a tool for how you as an athlete or someone in the life-saving community can become a storyteller. And having that type of lens and focus with it, you will see that social media can be a way for you to diarize your amazing journey that you go on. You can engage with other people, not only in your club or your province, also globally. You now have access to brands and other sports events, so it can really push you into quite a connected space beyond just your club and your beach. I think beyond just posting photos, social media can be a tool to really connect you with other like-minded people who are out there who enjoy life-saving as much as you do.
And how can a strong online presence directly impact an athlete's future career and opportunities, besides the link in bio?
So having a strong social media presence ultimately means that you have a strong brand. And it's something that these days many brands and companies are looking towards in terms of creating sponsorship relationships. Companies firmly believe and understand that they hit a ceiling in terms of sales if they're the only ones that are communicating about why their vacuum cleaner is great. If the vacuum cleaner company keeps telling you this is a good vacuum cleaner, you kind of be like, okay, cool. But you, rather as a human, you want to go online and read reviews. You want to understand like who else out there is actually using this vacuum cleaner. So, I mean, vacuum cleaners and Lifesaving, not really a match made in heaven.
I'm not using it, apparently.
Yeah. So, but you take that kind of principle and you can see how a company or a brand would want to partner with storytellers who can become ambassadors or advocates for their products. So I think that if athletes start taking their social media just a little bit more, it's not, and I hate using the word seriously because then that makes it sound like you're going to be serious and not posting fun things. Having a more goal-orientated approach to your social media can definitely help grow your career opportunities in many ways. You can be hireable because you're able to show that you've got great writing abilities, great content abilities. So if you're really interested in that space, it's helpful. Can also get you into really good sponsorship opportunities or partnership opportunities. I think, you know, a CV is quite a static, outdated form of applying for jobs. And any recruiter would tell you that they always do a bit of research when they have got someone applying for a role. So
I'm never getting a job.
your biceps might get you a job. You never know. So having a good online presence does help set you up for future opportunities down the line.
I just want to point out that vacuum cleaners suck. And what's the difference between simply being visible and building an authentic kind of brand?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, I come from, and as do you, we come from the generation that, I think we were near the end of high school when Facebook first started. And there were no rules, like no one knew what they were doing. And you were posting statuses about how you were feeling about your exams and then the after party that you were going to tiger. Or if your one friend was irritating you, you would post a mysterious status update about
Brain shield is.
yeah, this person is annoying me. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but they have brown hair. Instagram came along and everyone got super excited with all the filters and suddenly your photos looked so cool. I mean, you were using Valencia like it was coming out of fashion. And we came from a space of documenting and posting loads of content all the time. Fast forward to today, I would say a lot of our generation is still taking that approach because they have a good familiarity with not needing to edit themselves so much. And they just enjoy documenting and posting things and getting things out there. On the flip side, you've got the slightly younger generation who have come into a bit more of an edited view. And some of them now are unsure of, well, what should I be posting? And you've often got, you know, some of these feeds where there's 6 photos that are meant to like curate this person's entire life. And then they don't post anything more than that. And then every now and then they swap out one photo for something else. And I think there's a huge difference there. That's about being visible. That's like if you've got an Instagram and it's just so that you can DM your mates, find some cool posts to share every now and then, but you don't actively create content on your channel, that's fine. And that's just a visible approach. Like you exist, people can get hold of you. The building approach or the content creation approach is one that we want to dig into and recommend. And that's the one where you start being more active as a storyteller for yourself, your unique story, and what you enjoy in lifesaving. And I mean, everything in and around lifesaving. It doesn't always have to be one channel, one focus that you're looking at.
Interesting. In terms of building a strategy, how does one start? What's the first step they take before posting anything?
Yeah, so it's like you would approach a goal that you have in sport. This is how I like to explain it to some of the athletes that I work with.
Gamify.
Yeah, you gamify it. So you start discussing what are your goals with your social media channel. Like how we just discussed, like, do you want to just be visible? Okay, well then you're not going to be looking to grow an audience. Do you want to grow an audience? then that gives you an indication of the types of steps that you should take in order to grow an audience. Do you want to become someone who gets lots of sponsorships? Then there's specific steps that you take in order to get that type of strategy into play. Do you just want to be someone who grows a nice seagull noise, a decent audience, but creates a platform to send particular messages out there that you are passionate about? So before you post anything, well, start posting things with this new idea in mind. It's important to figure out, like, what are your goals? And you don't have to fixate on just one. You can have a combination of them, but it is important to figure out what do I want to achieve? Because without knowing that, you are just going to be throwing spaghetti at the wall, posting random selfies, and maybe posting selfies with spaghetti on walls, and it's just not going to go anywhere meaningful.
Spaghetti on walls, let me note that.
Yeah, so I think firstly figuring out what do you want to achieve is important.
And how do you set clear goals, Christina? What does success actually look like? What metrics are you using to measure that?
Yeah, so within that, once you figure out, like, what do you want the purpose of your channel to be, the goals you then set below that should be things that you would want to measure over a period of time. It's important to set goals that are able to be measured, so that you should assign some type of metrics to them. Ones like audience size are quite useful because you can always look on your social media app how your audience size is growing. Engagement is another one because that shows you the true value of your content. If you have a giant audience following of, like, say you've got 10,000 followers, but every time you post something, you get 2 likes, and one of them's your mom. You clearly don't have a very engaged audience, and we're probably going to ask you, did you buy your followers? So the ideal, I mean, within that, you want to be building, I think, alongside, you want to build an audience, but you want your audience to be engaged in your content that you're building. When setting your goals, like you would in a sports setting, if I decided to set a goal now to go to the Olympics, in LA. So we're in 2025, and that's 3 years away. I'm going to work back from that, and over the course of the next 3 years, set a stagger of different goals that I would want to achieve as milestones. You can use the same approach when it comes to social media. You can set the big, like, juicy targets, like, I want to reach 5,000 followers by this year, I mean, by, like, 2028. And then work back from there and break it down and say, if I need 5,000 by then, I need 1,000 per year. And then you figure out how many do you need to be trying to track per month. And you can kind of break it down into bite-sized chunks. I think that's the best approach.
And how do you decide which audience you really, really want to reach? Like, as you said, sponsors, fans, peers.
Yeah, so audience is really important to keep in mind at all times, because as you grow and your audience grows, it can often feel a little bit disjointed because suddenly you've taken your social media from being something that is your family and friends and people that you know in your community to a whole bunch of other people. In order for your content to keep that relevancy and that engagement, you've always got to keep your audience in mind. You don't need to speak to absolutely everyone. I think that's always a very important rule to keep in mind. But you do need to speak to someone. So what this means is, based on, if we go back to what your purpose of your channel is, if your purpose of your channel is to inspire younger athletes in South Africa who are in life-saving sport or life-saving adjacent sports, whenever you're creating your content, you want to keep them in mind. So you want to be posting reflective things. You want to be posting tips and tricks. If your purpose of your channel is to attract a sponsor, you've got to now look at, okay, well, which sponsor do you want? Because it's going to be quite silly if you decide, I want any sponsorships. Because then you might end up with a vacuum cleaner sponsorship, and maybe you just don't want to be making vacuum cleaner content all the time.
You've been looking at new vacuum cleaners. That Dyson got you.
Yeah.
Got you dreaming.
So if we take the I want to attract a sponsor approach, think in your mind, what is an ideal sponsor that I would want to attract? So if your answer is one of the, like say it's Cracker, so let's take the Cracker board brand. Go look at that channel, their channel. What type of content do they post? What type of content do they engage with? What type of athlete content do they really like? Then you get a clear indication of the type of content that you could be making that's going to appeal to them. There's a lot of imitation here that can be interpreted. You don't need to be trying to reinvent the wheel, because just by virtue of you being a unique person in South Africa, a young up-and-coming lifesaver, you're going to have a unique story and have a unique spin. But you can create content that you know is going to fit into the mind of a sponsor really well. The same can go with, you can look at other athletes that have sponsorships that you aspire to, and you can look at what type of content do they make for those types of sponsors. At the end of the day, sponsors are looking for athletes that they can essentially stick a sticker on and brand and be like, we love this type of content. This content makes sense in our world. So when thinking about your audience, you can also have a balance. You don't have to always be speaking just to sponsors specifically. And you can also always be keeping in mind, you've got your friends, your family, they're always going to love your content. But if you want to be trying to build other audience of content, go and look at what other channels have those audiences already. Yeah.
And besides, does my hair look good? What sort of questions can athletes ask themselves to uncover their unique story and their unique message?
Yeah, so this is kind of the final important step in setting up your strategy. You've got your purpose, your goals, you've figured out who your audience is. Now you need to figure out like what is going to make them dig me? What is cool about what I can offer? Lifesaving in South Africa, there's not a lot. I mean, we're not a huge sport, so it's not like you are in rugby, for example, and you're one of 1,000 schoolboys or schoolgirls trying to break the rugby mold. Here, by virtue of being a life-saving athlete, you're going to have a unique spin. Compared to other life-saving athletes around the world, the South African view and the South African experience is really cool and unique.
Hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie.
Yeah, so already there you've got two. You've got two differentiators. One, I'm a life-saving athlete. It's the greatest volunteer community sport in the world, so that makes me more unique than just any other athlete. Two, I'm based in South Africa. It's the country that's the most dominant sports country in the world right now across so many fields. But the South African experience is so special, and people absolutely love how that looks online. Then it can come into, at what life stage are you? Are you in school and you're an aspiring future star of lifesaving? Or are you at university and you're juggling your studies and everything that comes with the craziness of being 20 and still being passionate about sticking in the sport when we know that that's a very at-risk age for people dropping out. So that's a unique angle. And then thirdly, there's the other group who are your career makers, because let's be frank, we all know no one is a full-time professional life-saving athlete in South Africa. So you've got many of them who, like take Amika Diaga, for example. She's working a full-time job at Amazon in the software development team. She's swimming 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening every day. There's no one else on the planet doing that. Yeah. So anything she posts with that angle in mind is going to be interesting and unique. So I think it comes about, like, don't try and make yourself into a unicorn. You already are one by virtue of some of these types of flavors. And rather just, look at these angles and start bringing these into your storytelling. And I think this is what people will definitely latch onto.
Amika, did you get cracked the nod to the wedding? Okay, and can you share examples of some athletes who have a clearly defined strategy and
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many athletes out there with amazing channels, and you can see some of them have a good combination of, I think they're not just paying someone to create content for them, they are the actual content creators themselves. Globally, I would say the number one star in sports media is Alona Ma. She's a USA Sevens
rugby
player
player?
who is absolutely incredible at how she uses social media.
Killing it.
Yeah, what she's done, essentially, she took all the hooks and trends that TikTok puts out there, all the dances, all the little like ways in which you can create a little piece of content, and then she took those and shoved her message straight into them. And her message that she wants to promote is that you've got to be body positive, that rugby is a sport for girls, and that growing the game of rugby, especially women's rugby, is the most important thing in the world. I'm so invested in all three of those things by virtue of how awesome her content is. She's really great at creating content pieces that are relatable, but she's also really good at creating content that builds community with other people. So she's not just doing dances there on her own, she's doing it with her teammates, because she's also realized, like, if I help my teammates' channels grow, we grow. And I think it's such an awesome strategy that she has, because she's really turned her platform into such a powerful tool. Someone locally who's doing an awesome job with his social media content is Jamie Riddle. He's a Ironman triathlete, and he's also, like how triathlon and Ironman isn't your like everyday school sport, he's doing a really good job at showcasing what a day in the life is of someone who's got goals and aspirations in this field. What he does really well is he takes you along for the whole journey. He talks about his training plans, he takes you on training sessions, tells you about his nutrition, his recovery. You suddenly feel like you are watching, you're part of the story. You're as invested as you would be when you watch Drive to Survive. He's really good at telling his audience, like, I've got this competition coming up, this is how the prep's going. Then he goes to the race, performs in the race. There you are, like, Googling, like, I wonder how Jamie did, because you know I'm invested. Then he gives you a post-race debrief. And it's just such a great way of sharing that unique angle of this is what a life is like as someone with these goals. So he's making himself really accessible to a sport that's actually quite inaccessible, and really shining a light on triathlon. And I think there's a lot that life-saving athletes could be learning from Jamie, because life-saving athletes train pretty much the same amount. And so showing people like how much work you're putting in is a really good way to get people to invest in you. Over in Australia, there's two athletes that I think have done really well with their social media. Matt Poole was probably one of the first major Aussie lifeguards to attract big sponsors. He was sponsored by Red Bull, sponsored by Nike, and he took a very strong step forward with social media because he realized, like, let me have fun, let me put on a show, let me share content about what's going on. And that's what you want. Brands want characters. They want someone who is talking about their sport, talking about their love, every now and then having a bit of a cheeky rivalry going on. But you're essentially creating a character, much like you would enjoy watching in a TV show. He created one, and brands flock to him. And then finally, Lizzie Wellborn is another Aussie Iron woman. She's been using her platform in such an awesome way. So her business on the side that she runs with another Iron woman, Harriet Brown, is called Kamana Community. And they are focused on women's health and educating people around the menstrual cycle. So she uses her channel to kind of create the brand stories for why knowing all of that information is important. So she takes you on her day of the life, and is always feeding stories in, and it's tying into her bigger purpose. I think, if we flick back to like how Alona Ma is wanting to grow the visibility of women's rugby, you've got Lizzie trying to grow the visibility of understanding female health in sport. And that's then the purpose and strategy of her channel. And I think it's such a nice way to do it, because once you have such a clear purpose like that, making all the content becomes so much easier. And you can see they have a lot of fun making it. And we have a lot of fun enjoying their
Watching
content.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine. And in terms of content and finding what you really enjoy, what type of contents works best for athletes, especially in terms of life-saving?
Yeah, so now that you've got your purpose, your goals, your audience,
Your vacuum cleaner,
sponsorship strategy set up, you need to figure out what type of content, what type of media should I be creating? Because not all content needs to be made at all times, and some content is better fitted to specific types of stories and to specific types of people. So as a life-saving athlete, I think, you know, some of the challenges that people come up against and what will often stop them from going down like long content paths is, yeah, obviously in an ideal world, you will have a GoPro, or you will have then someone who's going to follow you with a drone. But, you know, that's like talking at level 10. If you are starting out, I think you've got to just focus on what kind of documentation can I be doing? All of us have phones, and I mean, the camera phones these days are absolutely incredible. On your phone, you're able to take really good photos, really good videos. You can do time lapses. There's a whole range of things that can be created just from one tool. And I think it's important that athletes figure out, like we said, what is the content out there that already exists, and what would I be comfortable in making? So when you're next on social media, this is a really fun game to play. Instead of just scrolling around and just liking things passively and drooling on your shirt, start looking at content.
That was one time, Christine.
Go onto some athlete profiles and look at what types of posts they make. And think about the reverse process of, how would I make that? And is that something that I would find easy to make or difficult to make? If it's something that's super graphic and requires lots of design, if you have design skills, then that's great. Then maybe that can become one of your cool angles of the types of content that you can make. If it's a video of someone talking and you look at how they're doing it and you realize, like, yeah, actually I could do that. That's not difficult. If it's a video where they've filmed a whole bunch of things and they've done a voiceover, you Google, how do I do a voiceover? You figure that out. I think it's important to play around and try and see what are the formats that already exist, and then which of these can work for me.
And how can athletes figure out what content feels natural to them? Are there ways to experiment? Are there ways to learn without, like, you know, really overthinking it and becoming obsessed with?
Yeah, and this is such an important part of another area that often like limits the content creation process is the content should feel comfortable for you. You shouldn't be sitting there filming yourself absolutely sweating and like frozen staring at the screen. It's going to be uncomfortable for you. It's going to be uncomfortable for those who need to watch it. Like, just don't go down that road. But the best way to do it is to experiment and play. So let's take an example. You go online and you see that there's a video that there's an athlete made where they have filmed a morning in their life and they've done a voiceover. So task yourself with the challenge of, like, I want to see if I can replicate that within my unique perspective and view. So you would know that then you need to film bits of your day, driving your car. You start doing the fun things where you like set your phone up and then you walk away from your phone. And you play around and you start seeing, like, what do I want to capture? Then you can figure out, like, do I want to put text over the video or do I want to do a voiceover? And you play, and then you sit with the end product. And then you should post it, because I think this is a huge area where people often start overthinking as they start worrying, like, hell, this doesn't look nearly as polished as Jamie Riddle's videos. Like, look at how good his are. Promise you now, if you scrolled back like maybe 2-3 years into when Jamie Riddle first started on his social media would be my guess. His videos don't look anything like they do now. We all know that like really cool thing of like the first pancake is always the most fillet.
What's your favorite?
Yeah, make your first pancakes, and slowly but surely they will start getting better. The same way, if you think about it from when you first started swimming, what your stroke looked like.
I'll tell you when I start.
Compared to what it looks like now, with years of refinement, with years of experimenting and playing around, you will be looking at a much more beautiful stroke. So the same happens with your content. And I think that's where you need to be kind to yourself and understand that you're about to embark on a journey, and you can just figure out and play with things. I think also the final step with this is then reflecting on the content creation process. If you're like, I found that to be such a loss, I don't think I want to make videos like that again, then don't. Then switch on to another content format. There are so many different types of content that you can make. So yeah, just have fun and play around.
And why is it important to align your content with your personal passions and values? I know that's a question I often wonder myself.
Yeah. So nice, we can hear the rain.
Some white noise?
Some white noise. I might fall asleep. So aligning your content to who you are and not to who someone else is super important. This makes your content authentic. If we go back to that point of what makes you unique, I think it's really important to focus on the fact that you need to tell your story, not someone else's story. So making it about what you're passionate about is going to also make it easier to make that content. If you're not passionate about cooking, please don't embark on a content series about cooking. You're going to find all of those videos such a lust to make. You're going to find the content creation process heavily unenjoyable. Go after your passions. If you're someone who's really into drawing, then figure out like what kind of fun thing can I do with drawing and content creation. Look at the areas of your life that you're already having fun in, and then think how the content creation process can come into those. Don't try and manufacture something because someone else has it on their feed, and yeah, there you are now in the gym trying to do certain vanity exercises that you saw someone else doing. If you're not passionate about front squats, don't bother yourself doing it.
No one's passionate. That's perfect. No one's passionate about those.
Yeah.
And then again, I know this is a big one for me in running my business page. How do you balance professional sport content with your personal content, and kind of what do you give away there, don't give away?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I'm like a broken record. You've got your goals, you've got your purpose. I think, you also see trends, and sometimes people are creating a separate account for their sport. It's not something I would suggest. I think the most successful athlete pages are the ones that present the most holistic view of life as an athlete. Yes, you could focus it more with a lens on just your training and your nutrition. And when talking to athletes, we're saying you're not just only spending your time training. Showcase some of your recoveries, showcase some of your nutrition, showcase what you do on your days off. So that encapsulates training as a whole. But I think it's quite nice at times to infuse a bit of your personal life, because at the end of the day, the people that you're spending your time with are also a big part of your success. They are your community, they're your partners, they're your friends, your family, they're your training buddies. And it's really awesome to show that other side, the human side of being an athlete. Life is a lot more fun when shared and enjoyed together. And it's not that you need to be showing every aspect of your life. You can figure out what do you want to keep sacred. I think it's quite common. Not a lot of people these days post loads of stuff about their kids, for example. So that's an example of what they keep sacred. But they post so many other things because their life is so much fuller of many other things. So It's not to say that you now need to showcase absolutely everything from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. You're in control, you're the director, you're in the driving seat. You can shine a light on areas that you think are going to fit into your strategy and your purpose in a nice way. And paint a really cool picture of what being a life-saving athlete in South Africa is like.
Okay, in terms of pitfalls and challenges, Christina, what are the most common mistakes you see athletes making in social media? I know a page you can go look at. Good examples.
So some of the mistakes you often see is athletes they've actually nailed the content creation process. They've created something really cool. But then they haven't nailed the distribution process, which is to, when you're posting something on Instagram, for example, you must add a song, because you've got to play to the game of the algorithm. You must add a cool song. If it's a song that's also trending, it's likely to get a little bit higher up the feed. If there's people in your post, or brands or companies, tag them. If it's your life-saving club, tag your life-saving club so that your life-saving club can repost your content. The same with, not tagging friends or not adding people as collaborators. These are ways in which you are kind of stifling the growth of your piece of content. So I think it's having an understanding of ways in which you must use the platform and the little tools on the platform in order to make your content like punch through the algorithm more. You often see athletes also they post things, they post it and it's one and done. Things like stories are there to help you revisit your content and to get it in front of people's eyes again and to get some more engagement going. There's zero rules when it comes to Instagram stories. You can have, if you wanted to, you could create a series where you have like reflective Sundays and you repost fun content from like your past feed in different ways. There's nothing to stop you doing that in order to kind of keep telling your story. Once you post something once, you've put so much effort into that type of post, you don't have to only get one shot at getting at some eyeballs. I think,
maximize.
Yeah, reposting is a good thing to do. And finally, another mistake that you often see athletes make is and this kind of dovetails off the back of where we were, is they start just going very sporadically in 7 different directions, and it's not clear what they're trying to communicate, who they are, what they're doing, and they keep a mystique to what's going on. I think it's super important to keep some of the same themes in there and to always make it pretty obvious that like who's in the post, what are they doing, why should I care. We often try and suggest to approach your storytelling and to approach your social media much like how a journalist would, and like how we learned at school is like who, what, why, where, and like how come this even matters. So if you look at your content in terms of answering those questions each time, it's going to be valuable. Yes, you can get away with doing like some vague ones, but people aren't going to really relate to it that much. If you add in more of these bits of information, people are going to have a lot more to hook into and be like, oh, wow, I understand why that's important, why that matters.
And why do you think some athletes struggle to stay consistent in their social media, and then how would they overcome that?
Yeah, consistency is the number one thing I'm forever trying to preach. It's so important to stay consistent with your social media. If you think of your relationships that you have with friends, you've got those friends that you catch up weekly with. You're pretty hooked into what's going on in their life. You've also got those friends that you chat to every couple of months. You kind of know roughly what they're getting up to, what milestones are happening, but you never really are like super connected. And if someone asks you like how they're doing, you're like, oh yeah, I think they're good. I kind of last chat to them. And then you also get your friends that you don't chat to for a very long time, and you see them randomly, and you have like a big catch up. It's important to figure out based on your audience what type of relationship you want to have with them. And what we strongly advocate for is that you should try and be consistent and have a weekly update relationship. It's not that it always has to be super in-depth or super in detail, but in order to keep yourself top of mind and relevant in the minds of your audience, brands, sponsors, whoever it is, you need to be posting weekly. Sometimes, sure, you can take a week off and then you can post a bit more in a second week, but over the course of a month, you shouldn't just have one post going out there. I think consistency, why people struggle with it, is because they don't have a plan. And if we go back to purpose, goals, audience, content, the next step is figuring out, okay, how many posts do I want to be posting per month? And then you try and commit to that plan of like, okay, I'm going to do 1 to 2 posts per week because my goal is to reach 5,000 audience members in 3 years. And you make sure that you start posting consistently, because then you're going to create a really relevant audience.
And I know this is something everyone will struggle with, but how do athletes in particular, kind of avoid comparing themselves to other people?
Yeah, I think this is a big one, and it's also something that often is stopping people from being consistent, preventing people from creating content, is because they start thinking that it's so much bigger than what it is. I think in the same way, like, how do you, when you're standing on the start line for a race, get yourself together and stop thinking about the person next to you and get into your game zone and start thinking like, you know what, I've got this. I back myself. I've put in the work. I can put on this performance. The same thing needs to happen here. You actually at a point need to stop yourself and trust and understand, like, I'm good. I've got a story. I've got a purpose, and that's where having a purpose is so important. There's a reason why I'm posting this. I think the biggest perception that people sometimes struggle with is that they worry too much about what others are going to think in their immediate circle. And they're worrying like, oh, everyone's going to think I'm doing this because I'm vain, or because I'm wanting attention. The coolest thing to then have in your arsenal is to turn around and be like, no, I'm just actually growing this profile because I want to see how many followers I can get, because maybe I'll get a sponsorship. You've now silenced them because they're going to be like, oh, okay, that's quite cool. Maybe I should do that. The same with, like, you can turn around and be like, no, listen, I'm really passionate about lifesaving and I'm trying to grow the sport. Also, I'm hoping that maybe I can go to the Olympics in 2032. Like, and if I start posting about it and enjoying it.
See.
No. So if you are, worried about people around you and what they're going to be thinking, just whack them with your purpose and your goals, and they'll understand why you are doing this and why you're passionate about it. You obviously can't have that conversation with everyone, so then it's up to you, at the end of the day, when you're staring at your phone and you're posting things, to back yourself and know that your content matters, your unique story matters, and you have a goal. So get it out there.
And I think, if your friends or anything like mine, they'll tease you either way. Jumping on the back of that question, what advice do you have for dealing with negativity or criticism on social platforms?
Yeah, I think, so most of the athletes that I work with currently, the audience sizes